As the second half of the 17th and into the 18th century, one of the biggest changes that occurs is that we start to see the French dominate the art market much more. And this is largely because of one man, the man we see in the portrait here, Louis XIV. Also known as the Sun King, he was determined to make France, which had been up to this point a kind of lesser cousin of some of the large Spanish and Italian empires, important and prestigious in the same way as those countries were. And one of the ways that he decides to do that is through the patronage of the arts. This portrait, painted in 1701, shows the king in his coronation regalia, 50 years after his actual coronation in his teens. And we see that Rigaud was quite flattering here. We see him in the same blue cloak with the gold fleur-de-lis that was present in the portrait of Marie de Medici early in the century when Rubens painted that portrait. But we also see that the king was fond of dancing, and we know Rigaud actually brings in a model to give the king the young, healthy dancing legs that he thought of himself as having even in his 70s and 80s. But Louis XIV also starts the French Academy of Fine Arts, a government institution which acts as a patron for the arts and encourages artists to come to France. And that'll be particularly important in the 18th century, but he also patronizes other kinds of artists, in particular architects and what we call landscape architects and interior designers today. Louis XIV takes the palace at Versailles, which was originally a small hunting lodge, and redesigns it on a grand plan and makes this the major seat of the French monarchy. So originally this was a place kind of out of the way. It's about 30 miles outside the center of Paris, so about a day's journey in the 17th century. And it becomes this grand palace with hundreds of rooms. In doing this, he changes the politics of France in the 17th century. Courtiers are forced to leave Paris, where they maybe have their own homes and their own political power bases, and come to Versailles, where they are housed at the king's pleasure, often in small, cramped apartments that they would never consent to live in anywhere else. But this whole building and the whole grounds are incredibly elaborately designed and reflect Louis's vision of himself as a great monarch that's the equal to any other European monarch. Probably the most famous part of the palace at Versailles is the Hall of Mirrors. Even today, this is a breathtaking sight. It's something to see. But in 1678, when this remodel started, flat glass mirrors were a new invention. They were incredibly rare and expensive invention. So to see these towering arches of flat glass mirrors was truly incredible. And they're paired with windows across the gallery that let in and reflect the light and the weather from outside, as well as those beautiful gardens that we saw on the last slide. The artisans who knew how to make this kind of mirror came from Milan, and Louis's courtiers had tried to control his spending at Versailles by passing a law that only French products could be used. So Louis actually bribes two of these Italian glassworkers to come to France and to make these mirrors in France for him. And rumors say that the glassworkers in Milan tried to actually poison these glassworkers for giving up their secrets. But this room, with its multiple arches and multiple panes of mirror in each arch, is a symbol of the statement that Louis wanted to make and of the importance of the arts in the 17th and into the 18th century in France. And Louis is successful in this. As we think about moving into the 18th century, we really see that France becomes the center of the art world, and it starts to be synonymous with art in a way that continues even to this day.